Members, it's the appointed time and we have formed a quorum. Let's first invite the administration team to join us. So the agenda item today is update on the implementation of smart environment initiatives. In a moment, the administration will take us through the paper through a PPT. Under the Smart City Blueprint for Hong Kong, and smart environment covers a wide scope, including pollution monitoring and planning, waste management, environmental hygiene, green and intelligent buildings, energy efficiency, green transport, and green technology. So the scope covered is quite broad. And in terms of smart mobility, we have also touched on smart transport. But today we're focusing on the green element in these initiatives. So if you want the government to do more in certain areas, please raise your suggestions. And later on, there will be a visit on the 5th of December, 2:30 p.m. on Monday, on a visit in relation to smart environment. Thank you. Who will take us through the PPT, please? So can I ask the Environment Bureau? Who? Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I would take you through the work of the EPD Environment Bureau, and in the middle, I will ask the other government departments to talk about their smart city initiatives. First of all, under the Smart City Blueprint for Hong Kong, there is the Smart Environment Initiative, and today we are going to talk about the four major areas. One is pollution monitoring and planning, waste management, environmental hygiene, and green and intelligent buildings. In terms of pollution monitoring and planning, the EPD has several years ago established the Smart Command and Control Center, and every year we will handle close to 22,000 complaints and investigates over 60,000 cases each year. So we have a database of more than 1 million pollution complaints. And you can see from the PPT that there is this control center. And there are many cameras there. In Hong Kong, all over, we have installed 200 cameras. So we have real-time monitoring of the situation, and the images will be transmitted back to us. And by leveraging on AI, such information will be identified immediately. Say if there is illegal dumping of construction waste by vehicle on the roadside, then the car plate number can be identified and recorded. So we don't have to count on visual inspection, and then prosecution can be taken out immediately. And then we have a GIS system, and also we have drones operating to help us. In terms of smart EC monitoring, we have fully automated our procedures. So when our colleagues go out, they have an iPhone, a mobile device or gadget, and they can immediately communicates with the smart control center, and on site they can get the information immediately, including whether there are complaints nearby and also possible pollution sources. And if there is exhaust and waste identified, photos can be taken immediately, which are transmitted to the smart control center. And from there, the images are referred or transmitted to other departments for follow-up. And after the waste has been collected, the other government departments can also take photos, and our colleagues can make a record of such photos. Because we do have the GIS system, such information can be transmitted back to us instantaneously, and we can close the case on the computer entirely. So all these can be done through the computer, and we don't have to write separate reports afterwards. We can also do a lot of big data analytics, and we know exactly when and where we should step up our pollution control efforts. So all these can be done. So this is what we're doing now. And then the EPD is also making use of a lot of new equipment. Last year, we also came to the EA panel of the LegCo to review on our latest devices and equipment, including submarine robots and also robots which can actually drill deep inside the drainage works. So on the left bottom corner of the photo, this is a robot which can actually go inside the drainage pipes. And once we identified that there was a white pollutants coming from the drains, the source could be identified and prosecution was taken out successfully. We also used drones to take high-resolution photos and then take out prosecution against the offenders. And they are dumping waste and mud illegally. And on top of that, we also use smart cameras. These are the audio cameras. Last year, we also introduced to members this new device at the Environmental Affairs panel. And why are we raising this particular case? Because this is a quite big, special case. For this camera, when it takes photos, it can actually identify the source of the noise. And in this particular case, the complainant heard loud noise within the building, and he suffered from a headache, and he had to consult a specialist because of that. So he lodged a complaint, and our colleagues went there at the midnight. So we used this audio camera, and we saw that this identified this particular spot on the opposite building. That's the source of the noise. And the next day, we couldn't find the source of the noise. If there was indeed a noise source, it should be there all day round. And actually found that the source was at the top of his own building. And then the noise was actually transmitted to the opposite building, which was reflected back to his own building. So within 24 hours, we could find the source of the noise. And then we handled the case instantaneously. So this is a very fast way for us to tackle the problem. So in the past, it took us, say, 1 to 2 weeks to complete a complaint case. But then these cases can now be completed or handled within 24 hours. So we have successfully handled close to 90 complaint cases in industrial and commercial buildings. So these are the benefits of technology. Another case is this. At the open drainage system, we installed a CCTV to monitor the situation and to monitor the emissions. And we identified several construction sites which might emit pollutants. So we installed the camera there and monitored it all day round. And once emission was identified, our colleagues could actually go down to the site and took out prosecution successfully. So we have successfully prosecuted 4 to 5 such cases. Well, in the past, we had to wait for the emissions to be emitted, and that was quite a cumbersome procedure, but now it's no longer the case. And on top of this, this is the EPD's own self-invented AI system to identify vehicles with a modified loud exhaust. Normally, they were the private vehicles which have their exhaust pipes modified, which make a louder noise and make the drivers happier. So we used a low-cost automatic system. Well, this was invented by the EPD itself. 4 to 5 colleagues last year invented this during the epidemic last year because we spent a bit of money to engage in university fresh graduates to help us with the invention. This was an ordinary microphone. So when vehicles pass by, it could measure the decibels, the noise level of the vehicles, and then we drew up a computer program, and we could rapidly identify whether this is a vehicle which has its exhaust pipes modified. So this project had won a silver medal in the International Exhibition of Inventions of Geneva. So, well, let's take a look at how it actually works here. Now, this is what we did in the late hours of the day. We put a computer there, so let's take a look. So you could see that when the vehicle passes by, in 2 seconds, we'll be able to identify that this is a modified vehicle. And in our screen, the red color pops up. And at the same time, we use lenses to take a photo of the car license number. And then we can intercept the vehicle further down the road and then take our prosecution against the driver immediately. So this is a very successful case, and we have managed to do it. So I'm particularly grateful for our colleagues for inventing this new device. And our colleagues will continue to study into this technology to see whether this app, this kind of low-cost system can be further developed. And for this system, well, the cost is only around $500,000, including the salaries of the 3 colleagues. So, and for this particular system, it costs only around $10,000 or so. In foreign countries, this will be a very costly equipment. All right, and then let's move on. We also do some air monitoring exercises. In terms of air monitoring, in 18 districts, we do have air monitoring stations. We are also installing sensors at the smart lampposts, which can provide real-time data on air quality, and such data can be uploaded onto the web for public access. And then we are also preparing to set up a super site for GBA air quality laboratory and meteorological monitoring in Hong Kong. And what is this super site? Now, I said that we have air monitoring stations in 18 districts in Hong Kong, and we would be building a proper data analysis station, and then we'll look at the relevant data. We will be also using the laser radar monitoring system to detect the concentrations of nitrogen dioxide and fine suspected particles in the vicinity of the Greater Bay Area. So we will collaborate with the GBA to build this super site. And we would be using a sophisticated computer system, and we would also be using meteorological monitoring and forecasting system, and to see what can be done to improve the air quality. Next, we will talk about water pollution. And we have also built a smart system for water quality monitoring. And over the years, we've been using some modeling exercises, and we would be looking at the water quality in case there is emission, and what is the impact of on the water body nearby the emission source. And recently, we stepped up our efforts in research and development, and if there are, say, marine incidents, say a container has fallen off to the sea, and several years ago, there was also some floating object on the sea, and you can see that there is a red spot on the left bottom corner. And at the simulation exercise on the computer, we'll be seeing the flow of the articles. And once there are such marine incidents, we can do modeling on such information can be passed on to the Marine Department and also other government departments like the LCSD and the FEHD, so that we can try to recover such waste. And such information will also be passed on to other GBA cities so that they know about what they should be doing in the future.
Last year or the year before, we had a case during which many containers had fallen into the sea, and we were able to very quickly recover those containers. Besides all that, the WSD has also used unmanned vessels to monitor water quality in our reservoirs. In March 2021, we started the pilot in Plover Cove, and this has already been extended to High Islands. And in September 2022, the scheme has been extended to the Tai Lam Chung Reservoir. These unmanned vessels can automatically plan its own, course of inspection. It can also go conduct detailed, in-depth analysis of the water quality using, AI technology. Besides that, the AFCD does also have a system which will monitor the phytoplankton species. So what they do is that they install a device in Tai Po in the Tolo Harbor, and the device has an angle. It will take water sample. The water sample will go seep through the equipment, and other than taking photo of the plankton species, it can make use of AI to distinguish the species of the phytoplanktons. For the AFCD, this is a very important piece of information. When they see different types of red tide, they will know whether or not they are toxic. And secondly, they will be able to, find out the reasons for the appearance of different types of red tide and how it will, damage the environment. So for us, this is very useful information. Next, let's talk about the COVID-19 sewage surveillance program. I think you probably have heard many times that whether it's the Health Bureau, which have also mentioned our sewage surveillance program during the 4:30 daily update of the Center for Health Protection. Every day between 7 to 10 a.m., we will go out to take water samples. After we've collected water samples, they will be, tested in our labs. During the testing, we work together with the civil engineering professors at the Hong Kong U. Initially, we use an ultra, high-speed centrifugal device to do the test. And at the time, we were able to only test several samples. But since then, we have been steadily increasing the number. And we were able to, work together with 3, commercially operated laboratories. With the guidance of the Hong Kong U, they were able to actually introduce new methods. And every day, they are able to analyze more than 100 samples. Other than testing the samples to find out about the intensity of the COVID-19 virus, they can also, test differentiate the different types of variants of the COVID-19 virus. Whether it's BA5, BA4, or XXB, the labs can actually identify all these different strands. All such numbers will give us a very important information. That is, we'll be able to find out the speed of transmission of the virus. In the process, other than testing, we also have conducted a lot of R&D. For example, at the bottom left-hand corner, you will find an automatic, sampler. This is a device which we have actually designed together with the Civil Engineering Department of the Hong Kong U. Which this product has obtained, a gold award at the Geneva, exhibition. So the device could be, installed underneath the cover of the manhole. It wouldn't affect the road transport. So we will be able to save time and manpower. And after the sample has been taken by this device, we can. It also has a lot of AI, equipment inside, which I would not elaborate on. Every day, we need to work on lots of data, which will be shared with different departments, including the Department of Health, ourselves, and the Command and Control Center, the DSD. Many colleagues would need to use such data. So after we've taken a sample from 7 to 10 a.m., after we've tested the sample, it will be 10 p.m. already. Previously, we were only able to obtain the data at midnight. And at 7 a.m. the following morning, the data will need to be used by other departments. During this time schedule, we have actually developed on ourselves a geographical, information system. All the data will be uploaded onto the internet, so that in the evening we're able to liaise with different departments. All such data could be used by different parties. For example, we will be able to trace the source of the virus. Recently, we've also we've done a lot of data analysis. In our geographical analytical platform, on the top right-hand corner, you can see that. Subsequently, we also invented a sewage management and forewarning system. We are able to immediately detect any sudden surge in the viral load real time, and then we would immediately dispatch high speed COVID testing kits, and we will implement compulsory testing in the area. Since March this year, we have actually implemented 26,000 cases of restriction testing declaration operations, especially during March and April this year. Also, on the top right-hand corner, you will see that you will find the viral load and the number of people infected. The red line shows the viral load of the virus. The blue line, the blue curve, represents the number of confirmed cases. In March, there was a sudden surge in the number of cases. So our testing capacity, that is, we only relied on the CPR testing, that would take longer. At the time, we were able to know 4 days in advance. The line at the bottom right-hand corner, the black dots show the situation or the data collected between March the 8th. The red data was collected after March 8th. And you'll find that everything is on a straight line. And we're able to project the changes going forward in the future. So after we've announced the data at the time, but such data was really very helpful for the government to monitor the trend, because 4 days in advance we will be able to predict what's going to happen in the next few days and whether or not our control measures would be effective. Just imagine the time we have 80,000 odd cases at the time, and the whole community was really worried. But if we could know 4 days in advance what the situation would be like 4 days later, then we would know what sort of measures we need to implement. And we can also see, now sometimes we find that we ask whether people are not coming forward to be tested, or whether or not the data was real or not, or whether there was any delay. Without the sewage surveillance system, we wouldn't know. But now you see that we were able to see, the trend. So this is the work that we do in terms of sewage monitoring. We also have many pollution surveillance and planning work. In the EIA studies, we've actually built some computer system. This month we will be launching a new system. This is the first such system in Hong Kong with overall environmental data and also the EIA data. The platform will contain many data, which actually is linked up with the database of the AFCD, which the data could be used for teaching and research purposes. It can also help us conduct EIA tests faster. Furthermore, we would also link up with other platforms. Other than our ability to monitor air quality, hydraulics, and water quality, we've also included other things on the internet. For example, conducting noise assessment. And our database can be expanded continuously. And going forward, we will continue to work with other government departments and the academia, so that when they collect such data, they will use our platform and our data system so that they can, send us their data, which can then be inputted into our system. Another benefit is that for the biospecies, for certain sensitive species, like for example, certain types of turtles and and so on, they could be, we could make use of such data to conduct to conduct our EIA testing. So this is what we can do on the internet regarding noise assessment. Earlier, when we need to assess what should be the alignment of a road, once we put the data onto our system, we will be able to calculate the noise impact to the locality. And if we want to reduce the noise nuisance, where should we erect noise barriers and how effective would that be? All that could be done online, so that we don't have to wait until the EIA is concluded. Even at the early stage in the design of the EIA, we would be able to learn well in advance, or we could do well in advance, come up with the best design. Waste management. Actually, I think you probably have seen our, waste recycling system. We have made use of the IoT, so the data can be transmitted to our central database, and members of the public can redeem, can obtain greens points to redeem gifts. And also, we have a smart recycling system. We have several test points covering about 80 to 100 points. We also have a smart recycling bin system. Recently, we've launched the smart food waste bin, and we are trying our best to build up a communal, communication system, so that different hardwares and software developers can work together to build our smart recycling system. So this is the greens system, which can also be installed through our cell phone. Recently, we've been talking about that we should minimize the use of plastic, knives and forks and so on. So we can actually disseminate information to the general public, advising them which types of such, cutlery is good or which is bad. We also have an online registration service, so local and overseas suppliers, if they have, non-plastic, alternatives, they could have such products registered. We will check whether they will work before we would advise the public to use them.
And then, in terms of green transport, in smart city development, we have recently launched the EV charging app. On their mobile phones, Hong Kong people will be able to identify charges at public car parks and also the number of vacancies available. Real-time information is available. So I have finished talking about the initiatives of the EPD. I'll hand over the floor to the FEHD colleague, please. Assistant Director of FEHD, please, Mr. Thank you, Madam Chair. Under smart environment, FED has been launching measures in that regard. At the top right-hand corner, you see the new refuse collection facilities at rural areas. What is so special about them is these are rural areas. Electricity may not be available, so we have adopted solar power as the energy source, which is greener, and these are different from old facilities. We just have one, or we used to have one or two collection bins, but this facility is different because apart from being a collection facility, it has a sensor activated or touchless control in which the door will open when people walk near the facility, and people do not have to touch the facility in the whole process. And this is also a fully enclosed facility, which is clean and environmentally friendly. And it has also a self-monitoring device. And if the volume of refuse reaches a certain level, the compactor will automatically come into play so that the capacity of the compartment can be doubled. There are also odor abatement, ventilation facilities so that the facility is more hygienic and clean. Secondly, we have also implemented the IP camera scheme to tackle fly tipping. Since June 2018, we have tried out such IP camera schemes at various districts. Right now, there are more than 300 such devices installed, and we will continue to increase the number of IP cameras from November this year. Hopefully, through the use of AI, if we identify through the IP cameras fly tipping activities, such data can be used for us to assist us in initiating prosecutions. And then Smart Public Toilet System, SPTS. In May 2021, we developed the SPTS in the Tsim Sha Tsui East Public Transport Interchange Public Toilet and the Southern Centre Public Toilet in Wan Chai. The system has a number of sensing devices to monitor the usage of public toilets in real time, including environmental parameters. Say, for example, its odor problem, the humidity level, and the usage of consumables. Say, for example, the toilet paper, soap, and also the operational status of electrical and mechanical equipment. Such data can help toilet assistants to know immediately the condition of the toilets, and if needed, measures can be adopted to address the problem. Say if the odor problem is really serious, the toilet attendants can do the cleaning more frequently. Say if the toilet paper has been used up, the toilet paper can be replaced. And such a system also comes with a visitor feedback system to collect users' views. So the users of such public toilets can express their views through this feedback system. All these data will be fed back to our back office computer system for us to make further analysis so that we can enhance our service in the future. And this is about using technology to help us with our rodent control work. Since June 2022, we have launched a pilot project in Yongok Road Market in Chunwan. So sensors are being placed at the market, and these sensors come with motion detection sensors and T-shaped bait boxes, which are connected directly to the government-wide OIT network for real-time monitoring of rodent activities in the market. Say if the rodents have been caught by our traps, the system will immediately notify us, and our colleagues can, in a short period of time, replace the rodent traps so that we can catch more rodents. And in October and November this year, we have piloted a mobile application to facilitate staff and of our service contractors to report operational data on site, telling us the location and number of traps or bays laid, and live rodents trapped, and dead rodents collected and their whereabouts. So all these data can be transmitted through the system to us in a real-time manner to facilitate our record and monitoring. And then we are going to talk about green and intelligent buildings. I'll hand over the floor to my other colleagues. Madam Chair, who? Mr. Cheng Wai-ho from the Development Bureau, Energizing Kowloon East Office. Thank you. To promote green and low-carbon buildings and sustainable development, and in the new land leases of Kowloon East, certain conditions have been added to promote the development of Kowloon East into a green area. So the requirements for achieving BEAM Plus accreditation of gold or above rating and a higher greener ratio, as well as provision of smart water metering system and electrical vehicle charging facilities, have been stipulated in the land leases. And real-time parking vacancy information is required to be provided. As of October this year, such requirements have been incorporated into 24 land sale sites in Kowloon East. Thank you. So we have heard various reports. So it's time for the members to ask questions. 5 members have been on the queue, including myself, 6, Mr. Kenneth Lau, Mr. Chen Xiu-hong, Dr. Johnny Ng, Mr. Kok Wai Kang, Ms. Carmen Khan, Mr. Dennis Lau. I know that a number of meetings are being held concurrently. I believe members are going back and forth among the meeting rooms, so we'll be very flexible. So Mr. Kenneth Lau has stepped out, so Mr. Chen Xiu-hong first. 5 minutes, please. Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I am happy to see that the government has adopted many smart environment initiatives and progress has been made. According to the paper and the PPT, the government has been adopting new smart technologies to enforce the law, to monitor the environment. So they have proved to us to be effective to a certain extent. Now, if I try to search for words, but I find that a lot of technologies have not been used properly. So that we've seen terms like pilot trials and so on. In paragraph 6, it says that scientific buoys are being adopted or tried out at Chinwon Bay and North Lantau waters. And paragraph 8, real-time phytoplankton species monitoring system, again, is a pilot project. It says that it is now being assessed after the pilot project has been completed. Paragraph 4 is artificial intelligence, audio and visual analysis to identify vehicles with modified loud exhaust. There is no timetable for its full implementation. And then there is the paragraph talking about smart recycling systems, smart recycling bins. So all these are pilot projects, trial projects, and they are proof of concept trials. So all these have not been fully implemented. I understand that testing has to be done. But I think that when the government develops INT, what matters most is that the technology should be actually implemented to a larger scale so that the people can actually feel the benefits for themselves. So can the government be more proactive and aggressive in adopting new technologies, especially for more mature technologies which have proved effective? Can you not compress the timetable for the trial and pilot projects? So come up with a timetable, specific timetable, so that all these new technologies can be fully implemented as soon as possible to raise people's living standards and quality of life. Assistant Director? Thank you, Mr. Chan, for your suggestion. Wherever possible, we will adopt the new technologies. Say, for example, the poor sewage monitoring. So from the R&D to actually using it, it took only 6 months. And for new technologies being in use, well, wherever possible, we'll try to adopt them as much as possible. Say, for example, we talk about the GIS platform for sewage monitoring. So from actually the R&D to actually using it, it took only 3 days. So when the technology makes it possible for us to adopt it, then we will definitely do so. As for water quality monitoring and also audio monitoring, and for water quality monitoring, we know that the technology cannot be used very soon because there are quite a number of constraints. A lot of the water quality parameters cannot be detected through the scientific buoys, and if the scientific buoys are used for a long time in water, well, maybe some of the oyster shells will develop on them. So for them to be fully used, well, we need more time. As for noise monitoring, we are fine-tuning the machine so that we'll be able to detect 90% of the vehicles which have been modified. But we want to do even better. And as a next step, we will work together with the police and also the transport department to see how the technology can be further applied. We would like to do it as soon as possible too. Madam Chair, I admit that technology will take time to be developed and trials have to be conducted to see what problems we will encounter when applying them to Hong Kong. But we have to be result-oriented. Say, for example, for sewage treatment, how can you achieve it and do it in 3 days? Because there is a demand. Because the sewage surveillance has to do with the anti-epidemic efforts. And for other areas, we know that the demand is also strong. So if we look at that from that perspective, then we can expedite our work.
Thank you, Mr. Chen, for your suggestion. We certainly take it back and consider it further. Next. I think for the smart city blueprint, the government proposed the integration of smart technology, and in terms of waste management, environmental hygiene, and green transport, there are 7 broad areas. The government is proposing all these initiatives, which I support. In Para 20, we understand that the EPD has developed the solar powered refuse collection system, which can store more waste, and it will be placed in 500 locations in the rural areas next year. So I'd like to ask whether or not you have any specific numbers. Will you be enacting legislation? Is it that all these facilities will have auto sensors? Will you set up a central control system so that the RCF will not be, in state of, malfunction? Mr. Lau. Thank you. I'd like to thank Mr. Lau for his question. First of all, regarding the choice of locations, we've decided that in 2023 and 2024, we will be, placing these new type of fully enclosed refuse collection facilities in rural areas. In the rural areas, we are locating these, trying to locate these sites. We believe that we have more or less identified more than half of the priority rural locations. We need to find locations which are suitable and where there is a demand, and we need to liaise well with the local residents, especially for the local residents. They will need to be satisfied that these facilities are suitable for them and would bring about improvements. So in terms of the choice of locations, we are working on that now. Beginning next year, we will be placing these facilities from next year onward. For these facilities, we will bear in mind how many such facilities do we need to provide, how strong is the demand, and we also have to find out how much refuse is collected at the different refuse collection facilities, so that we will place these newly designed refuse collection system so that we can improve the environmental hygiene. No further follow-up? Mr. Kwok Wai. I understand that the government has done a lot of work in terms of smart environment. All these initiatives are really useful. Next, I'd like to talk about the smart public toilet system. Many people have been discussing this topic, and people are asking, some people have said that sometimes it's difficult to get into a compartment in a public toilet. So have you collected any views from the public or any feedback from public regarding public toilets? For this item, you spent about $2 million. So going forward, regarding the hygiene and odor issue in these public toilets, would there any specific plans to further improve the environment of our public toilets? Because this really has to do with the the public image of Hong Kong. Well, thank you. Under the smart public toilet system, in terms of the temperature, humidity, and odor in these toilets, we've already installed sensors. When we go into a public toilet, when people use the facility, most important to them is that the toilet would need to be clean and free of odor. We have full control of the data in these areas. Under the SPTS, such data already would tell us at a particular moment the state of cleanliness of these toilets. If the data tell us that the cleanliness and the odor level have exceeded the tolerated level, then the toilet attendant should immediately, carry out remedial, work to improve the cleanliness. Understand that on the 15th of December, members will be, visiting a newly built public toilet in Pak Shek Kok in Tai Po. So during the construction period, we've already built in the smart public toilet system. During the visit, you will find new facilities there. We are using smart sensors to monitor the odor level. When the odor level exceeds the threshold, the exhaust fan, we will increase the number of exhaust fans from 1 to 2. When the odor level go up further, then we will further enhance the function of the exhaust fan so that we can improve the air circulation. And so these are the things that we'll be monitoring. As for the feedback from the general public, actually the SPTS has collected the input from the public after they've used the public toilets. For example, if the public have any complaints, we will give them some options to tell us which are the areas that they feel dissatisfied with. For example, the floor is too wet, noise, that the odor level is too high, and so on. After receiving such input, we will have the data to let us know during which time period these problems are most likely to occur in these toilets. And that, so through the system, we will be able to collect more inputs to improve the environmental hygiene in these toilets. Any further follow-up? Next, Mr. Kwok Wai Keung. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the departments for preparing this, the paper with such a lot of information. I think other than implementing these measures, the important thing is about the mindset. We need to be able to resolve the problem. You should be able to provide information, speedily, and also to, cut down on the manpower requirements. So with that, I'd like to ask several questions regarding the installation of, chargers for EV. In many people, I've been told that you will not go any further after you've exceeded 15 million. Will the department consider making further relaxation? And secondly, according to your paper, the FEHD in the Yeonguk Road, market, you will be placing motion detectors and the rodent traps, T-shaped rodent traps. And this will be linked up to the IoT system of the government for you to undertake follow-up work. The pilot was started in June. We're now into November. So it's been 5 months already. Regarding the anti-rodent work and the compilation of statistics involving rodents, what have you achieved so far, and what are the information that you have collected thus far? Now, who would like to answer the question? Dr. So? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kwok, for your question. I can also elaborate further on the EV charging, proposal. So I think the purpose of the scheme is to promote, car parks in private residential developments to install these chargers, so that when car owners need to install these chargers, they can do that in their own housing estates. We launched the $2 billion subsidy scheme. We've already laid down clearly the criteria and conditions for application. We received very good, strong feedback to the scheme, and the number of applications received and the the amount we expected to spend far exceeded $2 billion. That's the amount originally scheduled for this scheme. For the 2022-23 budget financial year, the government has made an extra injection of $1.5 billion. So altogether, the scheme will have a funding of $3.5 billion. By end of October this year, we have received more than 630 applications involving 128,000 car parks, which is far greater than the number of car parks we plan to provide the subsidy. Under the scheme, each residential estate, I think, for each car park is $20,000, and there's also a limit for the entire estate. For some housing estates, they have a larger number of car parks. So if $30,000 per car park, then for each such housing development, the amount of subsidy will already exceed, $15 million. If we, for example, we receive an application where the amount could involve $70 million. So for this EV, charging subsidy scheme, we hope to be able to, enable more residential developments to make use of the subsidy. So we've now set the threshold at $15 million, and we want that more housing developments can actually install these EV charging devices. What about my second question? Thank you. I'd like to thank Mr. Kwok for his question. At the Yonge Road market and the motion sensors, we've installed that. Well, we've started the pilot in June this year. The pilot will last for a year. Under this trial, we have installed about 160 sense motion detectors and about 100 rodent T-shaped rodent traps. During the initial period, we encounter many technical difficulties. For example, if nothing passes through the sensor still give us some positive, signal suggesting that the rodent has been passing by. So we've worked with the EMSD to overcome these technical problems so that we will place these motion detectors so that we will be able to capture in real time the data. And also for the traps, the data will be collected, will be transmitted to the central platform. We need to find out whether there's any areas we need to make further improvements. So far, we found that the system would enable us to clearly find out inside the Yonge Road market which are the areas which are most frequently, frequented by rodents, and we will place our traps there accordingly. Initially, this apparently seems to work. Furthermore, the road traps, after a rodent has been trapped, we immediately inform the computer platform, and our staff can very quickly then go there to collect the traps so that we can minimize the time for the rodents which have been caught to stay there in the market. Thank you. Madam Khan Waiman, thank you. From your report, we can see that after the restructuring of the government departments, the EPD and the FXG are now both under the Environmental and Ecology Bureau, and I think this is a good development according to my observation. Under the new structure, I hope that you can, work more efficiently point to point on promoting a smart environment. In the paper, you mentioned the, energize East Kowloon, and you say that in the land sale lease you have added some new conditions, and so far, as of the end of October, there are 24 projects. So in supervising the implementation of these, terms or clauses, is it the Development Bureau or the Environment and Ecology Department which will, ensure that these, these conditions are complied with? And also in terms of what about the effectiveness of the green building?
去到33
In paragraph 33, we talk about the Green Tech Fund. Because you didn't specifically mention it just now, I would like to understand what is the administration's purpose of setting up the fund, and up to now, how effective are the approved projects? Do you want to improve on the vetting process so that the community can participate more in green R&D? Energizing Kowloon East, Mr. Chang, please. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Khan, for your question. For the land sales terms, the Energizing Kowloon East office will follow up on all cases duly, including the 24 projects. The green building should be incorporated into the entire process of developing the buildings, so that we can minimize the impact on environment, and we would like to provide a low carbon living environment for people of Hong Kong. When we promote green and intelligent buildings, up to October 2022 in Kowloon East and San Pokong Business District, 60 buildings have been accredited with Beam Plus Gold Award, and we have the highest concentration of green buildings here. Our office will continue to monitor the implementation thereon, and there will be more land sale sites which will be subject to this requirement. Can you give us the exact location of these buildings? Is it public information? Can you provide detailed information? Yes. And then the Green Tech Fund. Dr. Che, please. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Member, for your question. For the Green Tech Fund, it was established in 2020-21, and to date, we have approved 22 projects from public organizations and local universities, and also collaboration projects between these organizations and private companies. So the fund was launched not too long ago, and many research projects take, say, 2 to 3 years to complete. So right now we don't have any specific information to update you on the status of the projects. We continue to improve our vetting process and procedures, and also the priority items to be considered. Say, in the first phase, we have decarbonization projects and projects related to monitoring of air quality and waste management and so on. And in the second phase, considering the blueprint promulgated last year, we have launched 4 blueprint, including the Climate Action Plan 2050, and we talk about net zero electricity generation, green buildings, and so on. These are our priority areas. So towards the end of this year, we will start accepting application for the third phase. Madam Chair, there are so many funds established by the government. I think that position is important. I think you aim to encourage more to participate, and it's important you also give guidance to the project proponents. So I hope that you can help the applicants in lodging their applications so that we can facilitate or help the community to take part in these funds. So we would like to see more university teams to take part. This is what I consider good positioning of the fund. I hope that you have heard their view, her view. Yes, Mr. Dennis Lang. Hong Kong's INT development is quite good. In April this year, in the 2022 International Exhibition of Inventions of Geneva, we have snatched 204 prizes, including gold and silver awards. And some of these projects were inventions by government departments. I actually visited the exhibition at the ground floor of the EMSD building. So I would like to first congratulate the government for all these awards. Now today we're talking about a lot of smart environment initiatives and measures. What I'm concerned is about the situation of idle land sites. Very often there is illegal dumping of waste on these idle sites, and the environmental hygiene situation is very poor. Maybe there is a lot of wild grass, and some people illegally enter such sites to dump illegally certain waste. It seems that no government department is following up on these activities. Would you not consider using more smart devices to monitor the situation so that the environment will not deteriorate? So what can the government do to address illegal dumping? Any new technologies to fix the problem, please? Dr. Zhang? Dr. Choi, rather. On the illegal dumping or fly tipping, we work on mainly two aspects. First, we show you some photos. We have used drones to help us for a lot of fly tipping activities. And actually, the the offenders will deliver a lot of waste to dump them on the idle sites. So our drones are fitted with 200 zooming power cameras. So when the drones are up there on the sky, the vehicles will not be able to detect us, but we can detect them. So when there is fly tipping or illegal dumping, video will be taken, and we also can identify the car plate number. So when the vehicles come out from the side, our colleagues can intercept them and take out prosecution directly. And in the past, in northern New Territories, especially near the fish ponds and the wetlands, we have used such a system. And we have been able to catch 7 to 8 vehicles in a row, and they have been deterred from doing so again in the future. And a special camera has been fixed onto the drones. We have such a camera lens on the road installed, and once the vehicles pass by, normally the vehicles will dump the waste and then they will go away. But then for our camera lenses, we will be able to detect them immediately. At the right bottom corner, the vehicles can be identified. Once the waste has been dumped, our AI will be put to use, and it will be assisted to learn what waste has been dumped, and it will immediately notify our colleagues who then can initiate prosecution. Our work has been very effective. In the past year, all over Hong Kong, we have taken out some 500 prosecutions. So our work has been effective. So for the black spots, Well, in a couple of months, 50 or so prosecutions have been taken out. So these people have been deterred from offending again. And the camera angles can also be switched. And once they, if we find that they have changed their dumping locations, we can also change the angles of the cameras. So sometimes we so we've been very successful in our work. So I would like to follow up, Madam Chair. For such idle sites, very often there is wild grass growing on them. Will the government monitor the sites? So if the situation really gets worse, will the government departments be notified to address the problem? Maybe there is a lot of wild grass and mosquitoes breeding there. So you are just talking about the monitoring of fly tipping. Can you also address the problem of wild grass, mosquitoes breeding on such sites? Can you do this work at the same time? For the wild grass, if we count on drones, well, will identify something green. So it's difficult to identify whether there are natural vegetation or wild grass. I think the government departments consider different ways and means to tackle the problem. Recently, we have talked to the relevant departments and we are trying out something new. We would be using what we call mulch. At certain appropriate locations, the mulch can be used to slow down the growth of the wild grass. So wooden saw will be further cut and smashed and turn them into mulch to stop the growing of wild grass. At certain landfills and also revitalized landfills and their sites nearby, we have started using such mulch solution. So later on, you can visit the Y Park and also the landfills, especially in Siu Lam, Choi. You can see that this method is being used to stop the growth or slow down the growth of wild grass. Thank you. It's my turn now. First of all, I'd like to thank the government departments for coming. In the past few years, indeed, you have done a lot in applying technologies in improving the environment, and achievements have been made. And the smart command and control center is a good example of how we use technology to address environmental hygiene problems. And when we talk about smart environment, we cover a broad scope. You are working on certain things in certain areas. Mr. Chen Xiu-hong has rightly pointed out that you are doing a bit of everything in every sector, but then it seems that you have not fully implemented the various technologies and you are not going far enough in your initiative. So can you streamline and speed up all the processes, speed up the trial projects so that the technology can be fully implemented as soon as possible to benefit people all over Hong Kong so that people can feel for themselves the benefits of all these initiatives. And I think it entails all government departments putting their heads together to make sure that things are speeded up. I have several questions. First is about the EV charging at home subsidy scheme. Members are very concerned about it, about the latest progress. Government officials said that there are over 630 applications received. I would like to know how many have been approved, and how many projects have seen the commencement of works, and for the $3.5 billion, will it all be used up? And how many car parks in total will benefit? And when will everything be completed? Because I have received complaints from a number of housing estates telling me that they have made an application, but they have not received anything specific from you. And they've been waiting and waiting, and no definite approval has been given. And they don't have EV charging facilities now, but some of the house owners believe that the chargers will be installed, and they have bought the EV, and yet they're not being provided with charging facilities right now, and they don't know how much longer they have to wait. So you must have a timetable for your approval, you must give people a certain date by which they will hear from you, because I've received a number of complaints from a number of housing estates. So I would like to find out more. Now, given the number of applications you have received, how many will be approved, and when will you handle all these applications?
Thank you for your question. By the end of October, we have received 630 odd applications. As of today, we have already, informed the successful applicants so that they can actually engage contractors to install the chargers. The number is 298 in total. I can explain why there are still 300 odd applications which are still being processed. Well, in our briefing just now, we launched the $2 billion subsidy scheme in 2020. At the time, we envisaged that we would be able to cover 60,000 car parks, but the response turned out to be very enthusiastic. By May 2021, the total number of applications involve more than the amount of $2 billion we originally planned. At that time, for the housing developments which continue to put in application, we advised them to put in the application first, but we have to wait for fresh injection into the scheme, and we will put them on a standby list. By the financial year 2022-23, we have made a further injection of $1.5 billion. Once approved by the FC, we will immediately follow up on those applicants who are on the waiting list. So we have already, deployed more manpower to process these applications. Hopefully, within the shortest time possible, we will cover the remaining 300 odd applications so that the application could be approved, and then they can proceed to engage consultants to do the installation. Members asked about the subsidy scheme, the progress of the scheme. I think members would have noticed that at the end of last month, on Hong Kong Island, there is, in one housing development, we have already completed the entire, all the works. We expect that during the current financial year, there will be about 600 car parks, or 7 car parks in total, will have the works completed in 2023. After we've issued the informed the applicants about their application being approved, that they can engage consultants to carry out the work. The EPD will have dedicated staff to follow up and assist them with the design and the installation of the chargers concerned. For the entire subsidy scheme, we expect that the scheme will run until 2027-2028. So by 2027-2028, we expect that the $3.5 billion, it should be able to cover 700 car parks and 140,000 parking spaces where where subsidies will be given for the owners to install the charging facilities. Could you give us such information after the meeting? Yes. Well, first of all, I personally really support this scheme, and I think it's an excellent scheme. People have always been saying that in Hong Kong, I think EVs have been most extensively used, but we all need to provide, a sufficient number of chargers as well. As more and more people buy EVs, but the charging facilities cannot catch up. So there's a problem Now, you say starting October 2020, you started the subsidy scheme, and the first car park was covered in this year. You haven't told us how many parking spaces was involved. 35 parking spaces. So do we accept that kind of speed? Do the official think that this is acceptable by Hong Kong standard? I think it's far too slow. You talk about 2028. You will only exhaust the $3.5 billion. So how many EVs will be registered by 2028? Will you be able to cope with the demand? Your target is you want to encourage people not to buy, vehicles using fossil fuel, and that they should buy EVs instead. While you're doing that, but you will only be able to exhaust the 3.5 billion by 2028 and covering a limited number of car parks. Is that reasonable? For people who have put in the application, you tell them that they have to wait until 2027, 2028 before they can have the chargers installed. I don't think that's reasonable. You've only approved 290 applications so far. After that, how difficult can it be for the applications approved in October? For the projects which completed in October. When did you give them the approval? During which month did you give your approval? And these 35 car parking spaces at their chargers installed, from the time of putting in the application to approval, and from the time you approved the project to the facility being, built, how long did it take? Can you further compact the timetable? You have 200 applications pending. You told us that you would do it as fast as you can. For these 200 odd applications pending, how long? 290 applications. How long do we have to wait for them to be approved? The 290 have already been approved. 630 minus 290, you still have 300 odd cases pending. When will they be approved? I think we will do our best, but I can also explain that once we've given the letter of approval to the housing estate involved, the estate will need to engage consultants and contractors, and the housing estate itself or the owners' corporations will need to conduct internal discussion, and it takes time to find contractors. They may need to negotiate on the price and the details, and also the laying of the power cables. And there have been cases during which the owners of certain parking spaces will find out that they would be affected by such installation works. So there have been individual cases. I understand members would want these facilities installed as soon as possible, and all of our colleagues, once an application is approved, our colleagues will do their best to help the owners concerned to find the contractors, and if any problems arise involving installation and so on, we would provide them with assistance so that the works could be completed ASAP. I mentioned 2027, 2028. The $3.5 billion funding, I think the deadline for application was 2027, 2028 when the funding was approved. If the works were expedited, then if we have good progress, we may not have to wait until 2028, 2028 for all the projects to be completed. I'm sorry, colleagues, since we have time, I would like to just want to clarify more details. You say 340 applications yet to be approved. Could you tell us when will you approve these 340 applications which are pending? Do you have enough manpower? What exactly is the problem? Can you expedite the whole process? Madam Chair, to approve these applications, it's not that we are not approving these applications, but in the process, the applicant will need to submit, all the necessary information, and in the course of, communication, they have to decide how they're going to proceed. The government will pay for part of the cost, and the residents themselves will have to pay for part of the cost. So among the residents, they would need to discuss among themselves. So the government will have to allow time for the residents to discuss among themselves before the approval process could be completed. Okay, and now, defer the floor to our colleagues. I just want to point out that many residents have told us that it's very difficult. They have encountered all these difficulties when they apply. And I also hope that once you've given the approval, the installation could be done as soon as possible. Mr. Chen Chi-hong, Chairman, you refer to the EV charging subsidy scheme. For each and every housing development, this is something new. So at the initial stage, there might be some problems. But if the government set up a dedicated office to provide assistance, and also, residents of different housing development can share experience, that could help expedite the process. Chairman, I also like to ask some other questions. For the air quality monitoring technology. In paragraph 5, we understand that the EPD have installed, smart sensors in smart lampposts in different districts, and to monitor, data involving suspended particles and nitrogen oxide. The data will be announced in real time on the internet. The question is that for the whole of Hong Kong, how many such sensors have been installed? How many have been fully commissioned? How many have yet to be commissioned? And if not yet commissioned, what is the reason? Another question is that for the next few years, there will be new projects and new developments. Do you have plans to install more smart lampposts, including those which have these motion sensors? Secondly, regarding the smart public toilet system, Ms. asked a similar question, which I'd like to follow up. In paragraph 22, you say that all the sensors in the public toilets can, with the help of IoT, transmit the data collected to your central system, and then you can inform the toilet attendants when certain remedial measures will need to be taken. So the whole purpose is to improve the cleanliness of public toilet. So you've spent money to install these smart facilities in these public toilets. There has been media report in the Takwa car park public toilet. 2 compartments which are broken down in that toilet had not been repaired for more than 2 months. So we're not just talking about how neat the public toilet looks like. We need to improve the quality. So in the whole pilot scheme, how can you learn from the experience so that when you build these smart public toilets all over the territory, how can you really improve the service standard?
2 questions there. Smart lampposts. So to take the question, Dr. So, thank you, Mr. Chan, for your question. For smart lampposts, well, the purpose of the remote sensing devices, they are aimed at monitoring the air quality. We have a trial pilot in Kai-Tak development area, which has been put into operation in June 2020. From the end of this year to next year, we would install a dozen or so such devices along Anderson Road and along the harbour front on the 2 sides of the Victoria Harbour, including the Admiralty, to detect the concentrations of nitrogen dioxide and fine suspended particulates. So like what we're doing in Kai-Tak development area, we will renew the data every 5 minutes, and at the EPD's website, real-time data will be made public. And this arrangement will be put in place in new development areas because in these new development areas, they are new and they can facilitate installation of such remote sensing devices. Say, for example, Tong Chau New Development Area, Fanling North, Kutong North. So there are plans to try out such sensing devices to monitor the air quality there. So in other words, that would be a standard installation. Is that right? So in new development areas in the future, remote sensing devices would definitely be installed. Is that right? Well, let me say it this way. Right now, we do have 18 ordinary and roadside air quality monitoring stations to detect various substances in the air. And for such remote sensing devices, they aim mainly at identifying the concentrations of nitrogen dioxide and PM2.5. They play a supplementary or complementary role. So this will be in our plan. Now, as to whether all NDAs will install such devices, we would like to do it as much as possible, but we have to be mindful about the resources and the land use considerations. Sorry, I would like to bring up a broader question because we're talking about a smart city development, and this time we're talking about smart environment initiatives. My view is that for all NDAs in the future, smart lampposts should be installed, and within these lampposts, all kinds of sensing devices can be installed. So we should not be confining ourselves to installing sensing devices detecting nitrogen dioxide level only. I think the EEB has an overall plan in this respect. So environmental assessment is just one of the initiatives. Well, I recall that when we discussed back then smart lampposts, the government told us that they serve multiple purposes and they will be fully installed at various locations. But of course, we run into a lot of obstacles in the way. So we would like to know what is your plan for the future. Thank you, Madam Chair. Like what Mr. Chan said, our direction is this. Once we have completed the pilot scheme, one of the suggestions is that for all NDAs, whenever new lampposts are to be installed, there will be smart lampposts. There should be sufficient space within the lampposts to allow government departments to install various smart devices according to their needs. In our pilot scheme, we are also working fully with the EPD, and then we installed such air quality sensing devices which have proved successful or effective. So in NDAs in the future, the lampposts will come with sufficient space inside for different government departments, including EBD, to install various devices. Oh, I'd like to follow up immediately, briefly. Well, you said that in the future. Well, what do you mean by that? Does it mean that you need, say, 6 months or 12 months to complete your trial scheme? And then come up with a very clear policy requirement. And that is to say, in NDAs in the future, such devices must be installed. What do you mean by when the time comes? Well, the trial scheme lasts for 3 years. And right now, we are conducting a review on the effectiveness to chart the way forward. And like I said, well, in the review, we are already making the suggestion that in the NDA, new types of smart lampposts will be installed. For your information, the Highways Department, well, whenever there is new NDA, smart lampposts have to be installed. And they are already installing smart lampposts with the design as those in our trials scheme in the NDAs. We want to make sure that in NDAs, new smart lampposts will be installed. And then next about the smart toilets, public toilet system. Thank you, Mr. Chen, for your question. There are three aspects to this SPTS. First, in the toilet, there are sensors installed to collect certain data. And then through the IoT technology, the data will be fed to the back-end computer cloud system. And thirdly, through the browser and application platforms, our toilet attendants can obtain such information instantaneously. So through work on these three aspects, we aim to improve the management of public toilets and to collect more information to improve the cleanliness of toilets. Now, once these data have been collected, our FEHD colleague can access the computer system and monitor the real-time data on the public toilets. And if problems are identified, say, for example, the odor level is very high, or there are some faults on the E&M equipment, or the consumables have been depleted, have not been replaced immediately, we can immediately notify these service contractors to make remedies. And there are also toilet attendants attending the toilets on site. So in the restrooms of the toilet attendants, there is also a laptop or a computer, and a alerting function will come up and to tell them exactly which toilet compartment needs more work. Say, for example, a replacement of toilet paper is needed, and so on and so forth. So once we've got these data, all the problems can be rectified immediately. We can replace the consumables immediately. We can clean up areas which are not tidy, etc. As for data analyzing the data in the SPTS, after the data have been collected, we would analyze them, consolidate them, and we would leverage on the latest technologies to see how the latest technologies can be further applied in our public toilet system. At the back-end computer system, if our colleagues find that there are irregularities in the data, say, for example, the E&M equipment has stopped and becomes dysfunctional, we can, through another system, notify the relevant departments and ask them to replace or repair the equipment immediately. So we can expedite the repair of dysfunctional equipment. Members are concerned about how this system can be implemented across all toilets in the territory. We're looking at this. FEHD is now managing over 800 public toilets. And we will see how the system can be installed at these 800 public toilets. Because these 800 toilets come with different characteristics. Some are in busy areas, commercial areas, in busy areas, and some of them are in rural areas with a low utilization rate. At other areas, the footfall is rather low. So we base on the locations of these different toilets and the needs there by, we would see how the system should be applied in each individual public toilet. Now, as for public toilets being renovated, because we are progressively refurbishing existing public toilet facilities. So in this process, we would be, based on the data collected, try to incorporate these smart elements into the toilets being refurbished. And then thirdly, for new toilets being built in new toilets, from the data, we will see what kind of system is suited to these new toilets. So all these the smart elements will be incorporated as appropriate into these new toilets. On the 5th of December, we would invite colleagues to visit the Tai Po Pak Chek Kok public toilet. This is a new public toilet. We will brief you on the system in this new toilet and what elements are incorporated in this public toilet. So you can see for yourself how the new public system works and how the SPTS is being applied in new toilets. So that's my response on the SPTS. Mr. Dennis Leung. Thank you, Madam Chair. We are discussing smart environment initiatives today. And what matters most is we should use more public transport modes. The government has an e-mobility app, and I take MTR, minibuses and buses. I would use the app to look at the frequencies of the different public transport modes. Now, for MTR and buses, real-time information is provided. It brings convenience to Hong Kong people. But on the e-mobility app, well, the information related to the minibuses is not that desirable. So can the government enhance the function in this aspect so that Hong Kong people are offered more convenience when they commute so that they can make better use of such apps and we can have a smart mobility when we travel? In the first meeting, we talked about smart mobility. Last time, we invited someone from the TD to join us. We can relay your view to the TD and ask them to follow up. Second question is about EV charging as well. Under the EV charging at home subsidy scheme, well, I have raised this in relation to the terms and conditions. Well, one of the application criteria is that for outdoor car parking spaces, the number should not be more than 60%. What it means is that you still allow certain outdoor car parking spaces to be included. But in some housing estates, they cannot reach this threshold and they fail to get your subsidy to install EV chargers for their owners. In July 2021, at Tai Wush at Mui Wo in Lantau Island, there is an outdoor EV charger being in operation already. So my question for the administration is, what are your considerations in this regard? Can you relax your criteria so that more housing estates can successfully apply for the subsidy to help their owners? The government has also said that in 2035, fuel-propelled vehicles will not be allowed. And actually, in 2030, sales of such vehicles will be stopped. So we have only 7 more years to go before that date. So how can you encourage more housing estates to install such EV charging facilities? Now, they are confined or limited by this 60% level. So can you how can you help them how can you help more housing estates to apply for the subsidy? Dr. So, let me further explain. For the EV charging at home subsidy scheme, we have got limited funding. Our aim is that as many housing estates as possible can have EV chargers installed. So to make the best use of public money, we have come up with certain criteria. In our application criteria, we also said that certain car parks have to meet with certain criteria. For example, they should have at least 10 car parking spaces, and 60% of such car park spaces should be, less than 60% should be outdoor car parking spaces, and not more than one owner should own more than 40% of the land titles. So these are the several criteria. So concerning the outdoor car parking spaces, if we are to install the EV infrastructure charging facilities, we think the costs compared to indoor car parking spaces are higher.
Therefore, given limited resources available, we would first of all like to look after or cater for the indoor parking spaces where the cost is lower, and that we'll be able to benefit more car parks. So that was how the rationale for our eligibility application eligibility criteria. Looking at the number of applications received, and furthermore, bearing in mind that we've made additional injection, which now total $3.5 billion, I think that's already quite close. So for the time being, given the strong response to the scheme, and many applications already been submitted, so we will stick to the current, application criteria to vet the applications. The member asked about our roadmap for the, popularization of EVs. We have two important timetables. That is, by 2035 or before, we will stop the registration of traditional, vehicles using fossil fuels. For those which are still running on the road, we're not saying that they will be banned. Another important milestone is 2050 or before. All the vehicles on our roads will need to have zero emission. I understand members are asking whether or not before 2035, no more, petrol vehicles using fossil fuel will be registered, so that by 2050, all private vehicles and heavy vehicles and so on will need to have zero emissions. So how are we going to, complement that by providing e-chargers? For EVs, we think that we understand there are several different arrangements. Of course, it is our policy that for private car owners, they will, charge the vehicles in their own, home or at the place of work. So we will work on both ends. As for residential estates and new housing developments, we will arrange for the existing, housing estates. We will help the owners through the scheme to help them install the basic charging facility. For new buildings, since 2021, we have, tightened the arrangement involving the total gross floor area. And if the car park provide for these electric charging facilities, then we'll make a concession regarding the gross floor area. For newly completed buildings, there will be gross floor area concessions. If 80 to 90% of the car parks use such an arrangement. Since 2021, the number of such car parks numbered about 70,000. So there are some which are already been completed, some are under construction. Going forward, there will be 70,000 odd parking spaces which are EV ready with basic charging facilities. Furthermore, with the 3.5 billion subsidy scheme, which we started in 2021. So we're going to have a larger network for the charging of EVs. And also for private organizations, or we understand that in many shopping malls, they will be installing more and more such, communal charging facilities. Earlier, in the public car parks, the government has installed 1,200, public charging facilities. By working on all fronts and through such arrangements, we hope to actually, tie in with the development of the use of EV. Chairman, my attention is focused on the open air car parks. Why is it that how can they work in tandem with the government so that we can achieve the purpose of zero emission? But since these are open air car parks, and given that in the housing estate, the open air car park, number more than 60% of the total. So I think that because of this restriction, some housing estates cannot apply through the scheme. So I think, so is the policy really fair? There is no single application where a covered car park owner would not have the application approved. So by 2035 and 2050, there will be no more fuel-propelled vehicles. How are you going to? I think if the owners bought an EV and they cannot charge their vehicles, they need to go outside to charge their vehicles. I think you need to address this problem. Well, I think the government will really look into that question, because $3.5 billion will not cover all the car parks. There will still be some housing estates which will only be able to benefit from the scheme, at which time the $3.5 billion would already have been exhausted. So you have to consider that. Next Monday we have another round of discussion regarding public transport using new energy. So I think we still have a little time for Mr. Chen Shih-hung to ask his remaining questions. Now, I also like to ask a question about food waste recycling. The first food waste recycling facility is now in operation. Do you have plans to build the second, third, and fourth food waste recycling facilities for Hong Kong? The first generation food waste recycling facility has already been built. For the second generation facility, we are working on that in the North District already. The two are already very different in design. The first generation facility use a claps to pick up the food waste and then help decompose the food waste. The second generation will not use that. It will use something like a hammer mill, using a hammer to actually, smash the food waste. I think that would mean that the food waste will be reduced to a smaller size, and it's easier to purify the air. And also it's going to be more durable. As for the ozone, the degradation, and also the production of compost, there will be a new technology. So I think during the visit you'll be able to see that. When it is in operation, you'll be able to see that. Secondly, for the biodegradation of the food waste and the compost, we are continuously making improvements. First of all, for the treatment of food waste, The new technology we will employ will use the hammer mill method. It will require less space. It's more economical. It can also handle a larger volume. And we also have some other research ongoing. And for the new food waste recycling facility, we'll be using such new technology so that we'll be able to, treat more food waste. What about the collection of food waste from domestic premises? Well, we've made some progress on that front as well. First of all, in the past, we would use a purple recycling bin. People will, open the lid and put the food waste inside. Some colleagues already saw. Well, the bin is operated electrically, and now in 5 housing estates we now have a pilot ongoing. In going forward, we will produce 100 such smart food waste bin, and we'll see which are the areas where we need to make improvement further. Secondly, we are working on this already in some areas, and that is in restaurants and large-scale eating establishments and hotels. We have a machine. Together with the Productivity Council, they have conducted a research. They have a project called Food Waste, treatment, for which they won an award in Geneva. The food waste, when it goes into the system, since it's done in a large shopping mall, so many restaurants can do it together. When the food waste is put into the facility, it will turn into pulp and contain in a container. And then they will have a vehicle to suck all the food waste which has been processed, so that we don't need to actually, take delivery of the food waste every day. If the food waste were, pulverized into the bucket, then the pH value will go down to below the level 3. They will no longer generate any odor. So it could be stored for a longer time before it could be, taken away by suction. What is going to be done throughout the territory? Well, we already have the machine, but still, we're still not able to operate it on a commercial basis yet because it's rather expensive. And also we need to make sure that the restaurants and shopping malls are willing to use the facility. They need space to place the facility as well. So they may be afraid that the machine may generate odor. They don't know whether it's convenient for them and so on. So we'll need to talk to the developers and the shopping mall operators selling this idea. For the hotels, they are really very supportive, and we already have a very, very, constructive dialogue with them already. I would first of all like to propose that we will extend our meeting a bit. I'm concerned about smart law enforcement. I'm talking about illegal dumping of garbage and the fly tipping. You say that you'll use internet camera to tackle illegal, dumping of waste. But the public is concerned about whether this would intrude on the privacy because your cameras will capture the persons concerned. When you capture people, breaking the traffic rules, you only, record the license number. So will you be using these cameras to assist you with the enforcement, or you need to actually catch the culprit red-handed before you can take enforcement action? Well, thank you. Regarding the question of privacy, now for our cameras, we do not have facial detection function. If you don't have that facility, when somebody dump the garbage there and walk away, what can you do? Well, basically, we are targeting the waste which are dumped from vehicles. That is the main focus of our enforcement actions. We are talking about construction waste and so on. Normally, the entire all the waste will be dumped from the truck itself. We will use AI technology to identify the license plate number. But if it doesn't involve vehicles, that's difficult because we do not have a facial recognition function. Well, in that case, we will need, and then normally, if he dumped the garbage using a cart, such people would normally be repeat offenders. Once we have captured the data and know where the time that they will go to the site to dump the garbage illegally, then we will catch them there.
And then another method is that they would go back by the same route they come, so they will not travel too far. So normally they are, say, dumping waste from renovation works in nearby flats. So we would also try to trace them through such a channel. It's not that easy going through this route. I think I have answered all the questions. It's about the regulations and laws. Can you actually adduce these camera video footage as evidence in court? Well, you have already answered the question. You are using the IP or the AI sound camera to catch the offending vehicles. What you would adduce as evidence is that you would only data collected from after you have looked at the vehicles. Well, our law is that if there is waste on the vehicles, we can prosecute the driver or the car owner. So they would definitely be caught. Thank you. I think we have covered a lot of grounds today. And that's it for this item. Item 2 AOB. Let me remind you that the next meeting will be held on the 13th of December, 2:30 p.m. We would be talking about the progress on the implementation of smart economy initiatives, and then a visit will be scheduled on the 5th of December, 2 p.m. So for the facilities that we have mentioned today, I will be able to take a look on that day. And I encourage members to take part in that visit, and we welcome non-subcommittee members to join the visit as well. If there is no AOB meeting adjourned, thank you.